Hi, this is David Lawrence with PolicyPak Software. One of the more common requests we get from users who are using the PolicyPak Cloud product to deploy policy settings and various directives to their endpoints is the ability to deploy printers. Now, natively, we might look at group policy preferences in the printers section in there. And PolicyPak Cloud can definitely do that and deploy the printer preferences to your machines. The problem with printer preferences is that you're limited to the printer itself. In other words, you can only install the printer. Under the users section, there's some additional settings for shared printers, but in the end, it's pretty much just the printer. In other words, it doesn't install the port, it doesn't install the driver itself, and those are usually the most difficult things and the things that require elevation. So the best way to accomplish that is actually via a script, and to deploy that with PolicyPak scripts, and that's what we're going to discuss today. Let's go ahead and minimize that. I'm going to jump over to my workstation here. Here I have, let's open this one. This is a script that we will provide and you can find in the guidance downloads of the PolicyPak bits from the portal section. If you download the guidance or either the everything, you'll get a guidance folder with a number of scripts in there, and this will be in there as well. So let's kind of step through this and have a look at what we have. So the first thing we want to do is we want to stop any transcription. So we do some logging, and just in case there's any logging left before, or maybe this script ran, didn't finish, and didn't exit its logging, we're stopping it there. And then there's going to be a number of variables that you need to configure, but they're pretty easy, and we'll just step through them. So the first one you want to configure is your path for your actual logging. So basically, typically you might have a folder that's kind of designated as your installs folder or your tools folder or some type of folder that you might have, and so I'm using tools. So there's a folder on this machine, it's called tools, and that doesn't get created in this script. The idea is you would have that already there, but you could actually add that into the script and you can create it yourself as well. But in other words, we have the folder that we want to put there for starting our transcript. These variables are going to be static, so we don't want to actually change those. And then really everything within these pound signs are what we want to change. So the first thing is, and I should actually say that my recommendation is you install your printer driver, right, if you haven't already. Install that somewhere and see what settings it does. In other words, what does it name the printer? What name does it give the printer driver? And so forth, and just have those names ready. Now, technically, you can name the printer driver whatever you want. You can name the printer whatever you want, but my suggestion is just to keep it a little more the same as what you might find with a native install. So anyway, so this is what I've typed in there. So we have this printer name, we have this driver name, we have our printer port, we have our port host, which is it's the same IP address. And so again, this is for a TCP printer. And then we're going to put our driver location, so where it will be when it's actually extracted. Now down here, we're going to get into creating those folders, but in other words, where is this going to be looking for that INF file and those drivers? So this next set of variables is for, so this first folder is a folder you want to create. So you might already have the tools folder, but then we want to create a printer drivers folder. And then this next variable is for the actual URL that you're going to download the driver from. So we'll talk about that in just one second. And then the next variable is for the directory you're going to extract to, where you're going to put that zip file. And it happens to have the file name with zip, but it is in fact a folder. And then this next variable is the zip file name that you're going to name it to. So you'll download from a zip file and you'll rename it. You could have this be whatever you want, but to be consistent, I would typically recommend having it to be the same name that you're downloading from. So let's go ahead and step through this just really quick, just so we have an idea of what's happening. So the first thing we're doing is we're actually creating the folder, which is this variable here. We're going to create the printer drivers folder. Then we're going to actually reach out and download that printer driver from some location that we'll talk about in a moment. It's going to test to see if it's already there, and if it's not there, then it's going to download it. Then we're going to unzip the driver to the location that we've defined, and then it goes through, imports printer management module for PowerShell, does some other stuff, installs the printer driver installs the port, actually does the port, and then the driver, and then the printer, and so forth. This is a setting for if it is a color printer to go ahead and set it to color. And then I have this commented out, but if you wanted that particular printer to be set as the default, you could do that here as well. If you have a number of printers being installed with this script, you might not want to do this and maybe let the users set their own default printer. So hence the reason it's commented out, but you can choose to do that. And the last thing is just to stop the transcript or the logging that we have going up here at the beginning. So this is pretty much the script, and this is how we generally want it to look. Now, it really comes down to this driver URL here and what we're going to do with that. So in order to get your printer drivers onto the machine, they have to come from somewhere. And so that somewhere can be a lot of different locations, different places. I'm going to bring up this little notepad here. I generally recommend something like Amazon S3. It's pretty cheap. It's designed to have lots of downloads. You can stick a bunch of drivers up there. You can create an account very easily. It's very cheap to maintain and so forth, and you get direct download links. Now, this direct download link is pretty important. I have some other examples of Dropbox here, and I want to point them out because you can put a file in Dropbox, and if you right-click and do copy link, and you get a link, this is what you get. And if you paste this into a browser, you'll get the, here's the download. Do you want to download this kind of page? But that's not what we want. We want a direct download. Now in Dropbox, if you change it and you put it to a 1, that'll give you that. So let me just show you what we're looking for. So if I take this URL and I go over to Chrome and I just paste this directly in and hit enter, okay, well, that didn't work quite how I expected, but this is a good example of this would not work. What I just pasted in there, I would expect to get a direct download. So now if I click download, see, I'm getting the download at this point. It actually should have direct downloaded, so that's kind of unexpected. But it illustrates the point that what you need is a direct download link. So let me actually go get, one second, let me get this link here. Okay, and then I'm going to paste it. Actually, here is a direct, this is a direct link. So this is an Amazon S3 direct link. Let's go ahead and open up another tab. And click new tab, and we're going to paste it. Okay, there. So as you see, it's just only a number 1 because we already downloaded one. As you can see, it did a direct download. So that's the kind of link you need. So whether you put this on your web server, or whether you put it on Amazon S3 or whatever, test that link and make sure that when you paste it in a browser, it does a direct download. It doesn't give you some kind of page like, do you want to download this or something, because it has to be a direct download. So website, Amazon S3, those are my 2 recommendations. So with that, let's actually go ahead and paste what we just did into here. I'm going to paste that URL that we know works. Okay? And so the directory is good, all this other stuff is good, the port is fine. It's not a real port for me, but that'll work. So we have our script. Now a couple other things before we move into that. I want to show you if I do a PP Cloud, so if you're using PolicyPak Cloud, I do a PP Cloud sync. I'm going to sync up. You'll see that I only have one rule right now. A couple of other things are that I have no Rico printers installed. If I click on printer properties, I have no ports, no TCP ports rather, and drivers, no Rico drivers. Let's go ahead and cancel that. So now what we need to do, we have our script, but we need to get it into the cloud. So I'm just going to copy this script. I'm going to come over to my domain controller and expand PolicyPak, minimize this, scripts manager. I've created a collection here called printer installs. So just a little tip is that you could create a collection to store all of your printer install scripts. If you have multiple customers or multiple locations or multiple scripts that you want to keep track of, you can have them all in one place, for reference and later use. So now I'm going to create a new policy. Click next. And there's a couple of options here. You could do it to the users, but remember, if you apply to a user, you have the issue of the printer install needing elevation. It needs admin rights in order to install. So that's kind of a whole other set of issues. If you click next on that, you could do with elevated rights, you could do some different options in here, but I'm going to focus on installing it as a computer. So unless you have some need that you don't want everyone who's on that computer to have that printer, you might explore the other option. But I'm going to go ahead and install this as computer because that'll run as local system and it'll ensure that the printer driver gets installed. So we're going to click next. I'm going to do PowerShell script. I'm going to, whoops, actually, that didn't copy. So I actually happen to have that somewhere else. We'll just go grab that. My copy paste doesn't seem to want to work. Scripts. I'm going to open with Notepad, and then we're going to copy all of that. We're going to paste it into our window here. So again, if we scroll up just to make sure we've got the right version, yeah, there is our driver download. So we're going to click next. We don't have a revert script, so we're going to click next. And here we have a choice to make. That's always once or once when forced. Now, if you run this always, I'll kind of demonstrate how that works. But if you run it always, it's going to download that driver every time you restart the computer, which is probably not ideal. And if you happen to have 2, 3, 4, 5 different printers, and you have a different script for each one, it's going to be downloading every one of those on every upload, which is not really ideal. So we're going to choose once or when forced, and I'll demonstrate how this works. But essentially, it'll run it one time to install the printer, and then if you want to force it to run it again, you can use the pp update force option, and we'll demonstrate that as well. Go ahead and click next. We're going to call this Rico printer. Click finish. Okay. Now, a couple of options. You could export this. I'm actually just going to view it as, actually no, I am. You could view this as XML, and you could copy and paste this back into your Cloud Console. For some reason, my copy paste between virtual machines isn't working very well. So I'm going to go ahead and export this as XML. I'm going to drop it right into my XMLs. I will call this Rico printer. Okay. And then I'm going to hop over to my cloud. Minimize this and minimize this. Let's actually just get back to our Cloud Console. Okay, so I'm going to create a new policy. Going to do upload and create new. So I happen to have this right here. So let's click new, open with Notepad. So here's the exported script. I'm going to copy that, paste that into here. Okay, we're going to rename this Rico printer. Quick add, quick close. And now that I have that, we're going to go over to computer groups. Link that XML here. Available policies, we've got our new Rico printer. Add that. And so I've linked that to this test group, and if we look in there, I have my test machine all ready to go. So we're going to click on it. So we've got that policy linked. So now we're going to minimize this. So again, I want to show we only previously had the one policy. Let's close this out. And we currently have no printers installed. If we look at printer server properties, ports, we have no TCP ports drivers. We have no Rico printers. So we'll minimize that. I also want to bring this up and kind of show our downloads there. So at this moment, we're going to do PolicyPak Cloud Sync. Okay. And you'll notice if we jump over to, give it a second. Okay, there, and then it's taking off now. So we'll kind of get, so what happened is we did a sync, okay, and let's actually bring this up so we can see it not there. If we go over to our tools folder, here we have a couple of folders that are being created. So it's downloading the driver right now. That's what we see is that, and it's actually done now. So what happens is you do the PolicyPak Cloud Sync, It syncs up, gets its policies, takes a few seconds, executes the script, downloads it as we saw, and it creates our folders. Here's our logs folder. Here's our log. Come back over here, printer drivers, and it downloaded the printer drivers. See 1128. That's right now. And then it extracted it, and it put all the files in here. Okay, so it downloaded the file, the zip file, extracted the folder, and then if we come over to our printers, we give it a second. And there it is. So it actually takes a couple of minutes to get it put in. We're seeing that it's still installing, and it's done. And if we actually click on Print Server Properties, we go to Ports, we should have a 10.1150. Okay, so there's the printer port it created. Our drivers, we come down here, there's the driver that it created. We can click Cancel. If we actually go into our printer properties of that printer, we can see that the correct printer port that it created, 10.1150, the advanced, our printer driver that it installed is all there, and that's how it works. So essentially, it goes through that whole process. You put in, you pretty much just have to stage your file for your printer drivers up in the cloud so that it can be direct downloaded. Then set up all those variables in the script, downloads, extracts, installs the printer, and so forth. And I just want to show one more thing. I'm just going to delete this. We're going to remove that device. Click Yes. Printer driver or printer ports, we're going to delete that port. Click OK. One last thing I want to show you is drivers, Rico, remove that driver. Yeah, do the whole thing. Yes. Okay, delete. Yes. Okay, so we've removed everything. Now, if we do a PP Cloud Sync again, because we chose that option for once or when forced, it is not, and I should have deleted this too, but that's okay. Actually, that's probably a good, well, anyway, it is not going to reinstall it, so it won't re-download, it won't redo anything, because the script has already been run once. And so if we come back in here, we don't see anything there. There's no change in any activity. But if you come over and do a PP update force, you can manually kick it off at any moment, at any stage, if you want to. So we're going to do the PP Cloud force, or the PP update force, and we give it a minute, and I actually should have deleted that just to kind of illustrate that it would re-download, but we'll just let it go. So it's going to go through that whole process again of attempting to re-download, but in the script it checks for the file. The file is already there, so it's not actually re-downloading it. We'll give it a second, and then there's the printer re-showing up. Give it a minute, click on there, click on Server Properties, and once again, you have our port, and once again, you have our printer driver. So that allows you to have it only download the one time, so you're not always eating up bandwidth, but still have an option to force the download on demand if you need to. If there's some sort of corruption in the file or printer driver or something like that, and you need to redo it, you can do the PP update force. So that's it. That's how you set up a printer to be downloaded on the fly if you have Azure AD or non-domain joined computers or some other scenario where you're using PolicyPak Cloud and don't have a way to push out printers from a server. You can do it from the cloud. Thank you.